following program, Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Normal Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Normal Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Normal's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. It is Thursday, June 16th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. We got all sorts of great news and comedy and music coming at you on this hour, and in hour two, Toker Talk Radio will take your calls and have more discussion on the stories of the day. Now, at this time, I would normally be introducing you to the pirate Ganja John, but unfortunately...
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know.
Yes.
They've got a town called Argusville.
I think he's gone to Argusville.
What are you smoking there, boy?
Nothing yet. I think he's gone to Argusville. He's having some more difficulties with the whole medical situation, you know, and he's seeing some doctors again at OHSU today. So best of wishes to Ganja John. Hope you're doing okay. I hope it's no big deal, and we'll see you here when you can get back to the show. Meanwhile, sitting in on the boards today is Kaliko the intern. How are you doing, Kaliko?
Aloha. Well, glad to be back.
People love you, Kaliko.
Oh, thank
How
you.
goes the political career? Any new things we need to update people on?
It's going well. We're just starting to get things kicked off. Going to be fine with the FEC, and then we're going to be having a press conference sometime next month, but we're still in the planning stage. So.
If I could offer you some advice for your burgeoning political career.
Absolutely.
Don't take photos of your junk.
That sounds like a good plan,
Yeah, I
actually.
thought so.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Good rule of thumb. And joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Grass Storia, Oregon is our good friend, Cannabis Carrie.
Hello. I'm glad to find a horse, the white horse that Kaliko was sitting on, just right out of the cam spot there.
Yeah, exactly. And Cannabis Carrie brings us our hemp headlines here right after the first break. So what do we got in the news today?
Well, today we're going to give you a couple of updates. First, we haven't heard a lot about New Jersey's medical marijuana program. I'm going to let you know exactly where that's sitting right at the moment. Also, an update on the fugitive who was arrested, part of the Black Tuna Gang back in January. He learned his fate this week, and there's some rules to the Colorado marijuana program that we're going to tell you about as well.
All right, we'll get to all that right after our first break. Also on today's show at 20 after, we do a daily toker tune for Groovin' Thursday. John Doe from John Doe Radio is bringing us some music from Illiteracy and a song called The Non-Fiction Love Story. Then at half past, we're going to Southern California with our Southern California scene and Terry Joyce. Her guest today is Kimberly Metcalf, so we'll talk to them at half past. And then at 45 past, I was up late last night watching me some C-SPAN, watching some of the testimony in Operation Fast and Furious. And if you've not heard anything about this, you will be shocked and amazed. You'll be shocked and amazed at what happens in that testimony. So we will bring that to you in our Radical Rant today. So all that and more coming up today on Normal Show Live. We are the voice of the Marijuana Nation. Thanks for sticking with us while I work through the Libramator here and make sure I'm pushing the right buttons. You can always download our podcast at stash.normal.org or through iTunes. And if you want to send me an email, it's russ@normal.org. Talk to you in a minute.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
Hey, you're broadcasting on Stickcam, right? Yeah. Right on. Big up to the people at Stickcam. I broadcast on Stickcam to BeReal.tv, BeReal TV on Stickcam. So big up to everybody watching for this page. I know your show. I support you. Remember that. Y'all watch that show too, because the more informed you can be about this whole movement, the better. Because it takes all of us to have this knowledge, to be able to use it to obtain that legalization. We can get it, but it takes all of us.
NORML Show Live reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share.
Cause the day was hard and your work was long and you need a break from all that's wrong. You better look at the clock cause it's 4:19. Time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
The New Jersey Department of Health and Human Services revealed this week that they have 90 doctors currently registered in their still being implemented medical marijuana program. The New Jersey medical marijuana program is the first in the nation to require that doctors must complete special requirements to recommend the use of medical marijuana. They also require that those same doctors register with the state before they begin recommending cannabis as a medical therapy. The doctor registration program was part of the strict and controversial special regulations that were proposed by New Jersey's Governor Chris Christie. The program was passed over 18 months ago, and as patients, most of who are terminal set out by the tough standards to get a card in New Jersey, are waiting, the complete set of regulations have yet to be officially finalized. With 18 months worth of delays to the program, the New Jersey legislature took the rare move to pass a resolution stating that the regulations are working against the intent of the compassionate use law. Doctors in the state criticized a registry that requires additional training in addictive medicine, since there are no such requirements for prescribing other drugs. Under the New Jersey rule, patients must seek out one of these 90 doctors out of more than the 30,000 practicing physicians in the state to begin the long process of entering the medical marijuana program. But qualifying patients are having a hard time even finding one of those 90, since the list is not public. Since home cultivation is not allowed, the patient must also choose out one of the 6 alternative treatment center sites where they would be allowed to obtain medical marijuana, and then they must wait for the approval of the Department of Health and Human Services, which will send them an official ID card. Currently, the number of patients registered in the New Jersey medical marijuana program that was passed in January of 2010 is 0. There is not one dispensary open in New Jersey yet, although there are some multi-million-dollar facilities that have been approved as dispensaries. Many of the patients who fought long and hard with what little energy their disabilities and disease have left them with have all but given up on the program. Those with MS, cancer, HIV, and other serious conditions have returned to the black market instead. End-of-life caregivers and hospice personnel have had to look the other way as families of dying patients have had to risk arrest for easing the pain of a loved one. Now, you can find out more about the New Jersey medical marijuana program and the struggles to implement it that are chronicled on Chris Goldstein's website, freedomisgreen.com.
Yeah, and when this New Jersey law was written, it was written up specifically to help people that had less than 12 months to live. That was one of the things written in the law, that we were going to help people less than 12 months to live. And now it's been, 15, 16 months since this has been passed and has moved absolutely no direction forward here. In fact, has moved backwards with Chris Christie, the governor there, proposing limits like 10% THC limit on all cultivated cannabis and limiting cultivation to just 3 strains. And this thing about requiring doctors to register, too. I mean, you'd think that they were dealing plutonium, right? We're talking about medical marijuana here, something so much far safer than most of the prescription drugs these doctors are recommending, safer than Viagra even, and these guys don't have to register to peddle that. So once again, it just shows that how one person, Chris Christie here, this governor here, can be a roadblock for the relief and the compassion that is deserved by so many people in the state of New Jersey and approved of by their legislature. This has to end. Chris Christie's got to go, and this program needs to be brought online as soon as possible. And that's all I have to say about that. Sorry.
And changes in the medical marijuana law in Colorado were passed on Wednesday by the Colorado Board of Health by a unanimous vote. The rules were changed in front of a crowd that was clearly against the new rules. The only people testifying for the changes were members of law enforcement. The bulk of testimony before the vote came from patients, activists, and caregivers that urged the board to vote against the proposed changes. Changes to Amendment 20, the state constitutional amendment that gives qualified Colorado citizens the legal right to consume cannabis for medical reasons, have frustrated many. The changes to the law will affect those who are caregivers for medical marijuana patients, a designation that allows someone assisting a medical marijuana patient to handle the cannabis, transport it, acquire it, and often grow it. The changes suggest that there must be a closer relationship between patient and caregiver that goes outside the bounds of cannabis, such as providing transportation to the patient, doing housekeeping, or meal preparation for their patients. The actual language states, quote, "The act of supplying medical marijuana is insufficient to constitute significant responsibility for managing the well-being of a patient who has a debilitating medical condition." Now, some testified that the changes mean that people who are skilled at cultivation are now being asked to act like therapists, and that the new law suggests that caregivers have professional skills to act as home healthcare workers and not get paid for it. The new rule does not affect marijuana dispensaries since they are regulated by a different set of laws. According to the Denver Post, there are approximately 16,000 registered caregivers in the state that can help provide marijuana to patients and have no access to a dispensary or that cannot grow cannabis themselves. The law seemingly aims at caretakers who provide medical cannabis for a handful of patients, the so-called mom and pop providers, not dispensaries, but someone who has the skill set, the means, and the space to grow marijuana for a few people. This new law will vastly change that relationship between providers and their patients. Law enforcement, who is in favor of the rule changes, claim that the new rule is not intended to interfere with legitimate caregivers, but to clarify between a medical marijuana caregiver and an illegal drug dealer that uses the caregiver clause as a cover to sell marijuana to anyone for a profit. The rules will go into effect at the end of July, and it is unclear how law officials will enforce this new rule change. Oh, and one more change in the law that came yesterday. Patients who are no longer suffering from a debilitating condition must return their medical marijuana card within 24 hours of that diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I don't want to see any more restrictions on Colorado's Amendment 20 any more than anyone else, but there is a part of me that's saying, you wanted medical marijuana. You wanted it medical. When you start bringing medical into it and you say words like caregivers, people think medical caregiver, a person who, like my wife was a CNA for a long time, was a caregiver in hospices and for old people and disabled people. And that involved feeding them, clothing them, bathing them, wiping their butts. I mean, that's caregiving. Okay. So when you decide to say medical caregiver and all your caregiving is that you deliver weed to someone, that for the people who believe in medical, who in other circumstances, that doesn't reconcile with them. Again, I'm not saying this is my point of view here on this. I'm for everyone using marijuana for whatever reason they need to and not having to register with any government to do so. But there's something telling in that enforcement official saying, this is just not to hurt the legitimate caregivers, but to get those that are using caregiver as a cover for illegal drug dealing. They wouldn't have to make these regulations if getting marijuana to people wasn't considered illegal drug dealing in the first place. You asked for medical, and now you're getting medical. So why don't you work with us in Colorado to get it legalized for all adults, and then we can put all of this medical, figuring out who's the criminals, who's the patients, we can put all that behind us.
Wow, well said, Russ. A former member of the infamous Black Tuna Gang learned his fate this week. Back in January, we told you about the former associate of the Miami Black Tuna Gang, Mark Stephen Phillips, who had been arrested more than 3 decades after fleeing his trial in 1979 for charges of violating the racketeering, influenced, and corrupt organization statutes. He was also charged with engaging in a criminal enterprise and possession of marijuana with intent to sell it. Phillips was convicted in absentia in February of 1980 of racketeering as well as possession and distribution of marijuana. He was facing additional fugitive charges as well. Phillips was a director for a boating company back in the 1970s and helped members of the Black Tuna Gang buy boats and refit them with hidden compartments for marijuana cargo. He was one of 14 people charged for the same crime, along with frequent NSL guest Robert Platshorn, who served out 3 decades for his involvement in the crime ring. Phillips was arrested in January at a senior community apartment complex in West Palm Beach, Florida, by the Marshals Cold Case Fugitive Squad. They tracked Phillips through Chile and Germany in the early 80s, but then lost his known whereabouts. They found him when the now 62-year-old got a driver's license in his real name in Florida in 2010. According to the Marshals Service, at the time he was arrested, he was living in a small rented apartment. He owns no property, and he was living on a meager $667 a month that he was receiving from Social Security. His current lawyer argued in court this week that Phillips played a very minor role in the criminal enterprise. He had nothing to do with the actual shipping of tons of marijuana that came to the States. He also asked the judge to consider his client's age, the bipolar disorder that he suffers from, and the minimal dealings he had with other members of the Black Tuna Gang. Phillips has been battling mental health issues for the last few years. His lawyer also told the judge that his client's involvement with the entire case was more of a social one. He said that he was a fishing buddy of some of the members of the Black Tuna Gang. His case was argued in front of the same judge who presided over his case back in 1979, District Judge James Lawrence King, who is now 83 years old and still serving in Florida. The judge recalled some of the testimony from the original trial. Phillips was on board of a bungled boat trip that was headed for North Carolina, but ran aground off the Bahamas. The judge recalled from memory, not any written testimony, that the boat veered off course when a drunken crew member began cooking steaks and started a galley fire. That North Carolina-bound boat had about 40,000 pounds of marijuana in cargo. He was convicted in North Carolina and sentenced to 5 years, but he never served the term because he was indicted in Miami and then fled during that trial. The judge followed the suggestion of the defense attorney and sentenced him with 5 years in prison, a far cry from the life sentence he was facing and the recommendations from the prosecution that were asking for at least 15 years. The Miami judge will allow both of those terms to be run concurrently, so he will only spend the 5 years total. His lawyers were very happy with the verdict, saying that if his health holds up, Phillips can still have life outside of a prison after his release.
Wow. We'll have to get Bobby Tuna on the line sometime, Robert Platshorn, to talk about this. But I want to go to our chat room where someone made a very, very cogent observation here. Law enforcement could not find him till he tried to get a driver's license, but he was getting Social Security? Yeah, it makes you think about, when you hear things like the 9/11 hijackers being in this country and learning how to fly planes and not having visas and all that. And gee, how could have that just gone unnoticed? Here's a guy who's been wanted for 30 years in this country, who's been using his own name openly. Oh my God. So yeah, just incompetence. Never attribute to malice or conspiracy what can be explained by incompetence and just muddling through. And I think that's what this story tells us. Shame he has to go to prison for 5 years. He should, God, it's been 30 years? Do we really need to put this guy away for something that happened 30 years ago? Especially with the way America, it's just a shame. I'm sorry to see him go here. Folks, we're going to take a break here, and when we do, I got to remind you, I've got the NORML Big Book of Marijuana Facts. It will be shipping September 1st, and the pre-order pages are up now at stash.normal.org. Just go to stash.normal.org, click on the Big Book icon there, and you will see the preview of the book and the order forms there that you need to be able to get your ordered copy and, if you wish, your own autographed copy. So check that out, normal.com, or I'm sorry, stash.normal.org, and then look under Big Book. Whew.
Let's take one, huh?
Yeah, I think it's time to take a break. I'm having a hell of a day. When we come back, we'll be doing some Groovin' Thursday music, and at the end of the show, some news on Operation Fast and Furious.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
You want to legalize it? Call your congressman today. 202-224-3121. It's free, it's easy, and you don't even have to give your name, just your zip code, and they'll hook you up to your congressman. Call 202-224-3121 and tell Congress you support marijuana legalization.
Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. Liberate your mind. That's what you got to do. Liberate your mind.
76% of Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers, and nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. And over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.normal.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday. Our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
The John Doe Radio Show.
JDR here with your Groovin' Thursday tune on NORML Show Live. The band I'm bringing you today is called Illiteracy. You can check them out, ill-it.com. The song that I'm going to play for you right now is called Love Story. Non-fiction love story, I should say. You can download this song and can download the mixtape at illit.com, ill-it.com. Not a lot available about this band. I know that I've played a few other tracks from this band before on NORML Show Live, and they have a few tracks in rotation at our stickam.com/John Doe Radio live music feed that goes on all the time. So enjoy. Please, please, please support the NORML Network, live.normal.org. Enjoy the John Doe Radio Show on replays, 7 Pacific, 8 Mountain. Thank you very much, the awesome listeners of NORML Show Live. I'm John Doe. Until we meet again next time, thank you and see you.
Hello and welcome. The story I'm about to tell you is a love story.
dancing, the romancing. Feeling like she the one, cause my heart be racing. I'm so smooth with that soul groove. I love the way your body move. It's like she was on my mind all night. I'd rather get chills than rock ice. And you know me, I ain't the type to floss. So many lanes that came with the same act lost. Skip the greet like it's nice to meet, cause it felt like we already met. I couldn't believe that this time it wasn't a dream. And if it is, please let me sleep. Hibernate to another page, no need or another chapter, no bookmark between, cause the story is written as I speak. Non-fiction love story for me, let's go.
This ain't typical love story. I ain't Cinderella, you ain't Prince Charming. No, we got chemistry, and we know what we need to make it work. I'll keep listening, you keep speaking.
Some say I'm a fool, I'm just a sucker for love. You know a sucker for kisses and hugs. Couches, beds, and rugs, spill play brown for us as hands filled with the eyes touch. If it's a sin to lust, I'm a burn storm. I'm trying to make it last forever. Why would I rush? I'm trying to help you release, like give us free. Am I selfish cause I just want you to give it to me? Close your eyes, I just want you to see. You're sweet like honey and who you are, I just want you to be. When God was creating, must have sculpted you with my dream. Cause I swear to him that you was made for me and not for you. As it turned to us, walking through life is we. Make a king out of a man, cause you definitely a queen to be. Non-fiction love story for me.
This ain't typical love story. I ain't Cinderella, you ain't Prince Charming. No, we got chemistry, and we know what we need to make it work. I'll keep listening, you keep speaking.
This how it went, yo. First thing I know, panties get a little damper. Next thing I know, clothes hanging off the hamper. No questions asked, yes indeed was the answer. Now I smile purchasing our baby boy's Pampers. We invested in a life and a life together. Am I right to right? Just make it better. Let them all know, let them all hate, let them all take part in the chit chat. Peeping what you got, they can't get that. Feeling sprung like late March, and the chicks that had me before know I'll never get back. Light the candles, one for every year. Place them all around ground zero. It's going down here. Let me relax you, oil and wax you. Dermal massages, running my hands all over your tattoos. The saga unfolds as our hearts beat. Non-fiction love story for me.
This ain't typical love story. I ain't Cinderella, you ain't Prince Charming. You know we got chemistry. We got it, and we know what we need to make it work. I'll keep listening, you keep speaking. Writing our love story. Your typical love story. We got that chemistry, and we know just what we need to make it work. I'll keep listening, you keep speaking.
They were, well, what you might say, meant for each other. Everybody said so. Attractive, personable, identical taste, interest, men.
You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media, and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
James Roquefort here from peopleradio.com, and you're listening to NORML, the podcast for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Oh, I didn't know they needed reforming. It's illegal, you say? I'll be right back. Sorry, I had to flush my goldfish down the toilet. What was this about marijuana? Oh well, now on with the show.
Normal Show Live reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share.
All my friends know the low rider.
This is Normal Show Live.
The low rider is a little higher.
Weed.
That's Hooey Valley, hooey-ha.
Weed.
Where any office boy or young mechanic.
Now it's time for a report from the epicenter of American cannabis culture with our Southern California correspondent. You know her from ComedyNation.com and her appearance as a finalist on Season 1 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. It's our friend, cannabis comedian and marijuana activist, the lovely and talented Terry Joyce. Well, we hope it's the lovely and talented Terry Joyce. Terry, do I got you on the line?
You do have me on the line.
Just in the nick of time. We did it. It's because we're professionals
Yeah.
here, eh?
Hey.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Things are going pretty good. You know, I did a Hollywood Hempress Hour taping yesterday and went out with some of the guys from the Eagle Rock activists.
Oh.
And we went to a local bar that was across the street from the Hollywood Walk-In Clinic and Cushmart.
Okay.
Hollywood Walk-In Clinic, I don't know if you remember, Dr. Hill came on the show one time because he was
Right.
at the Berkeley Clinic. Right? Okay, so that location, Cushmart's upstairs, they were raided by LAPD yesterday.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I went and got some snapshots and everything. I know I'm laughing at it, but they're like, man, you have to get out of here. I'm like, wait a second. I'm like taking pictures. I'm like, I'm going to tweet this and Facebook it. We got a really great shot of the flag with a marijuana leaf on it over an LAPD cop car, which I thought was really cool, where it says protect and serve, and then there's the big marijuana leaf, which is awesome. Minute we did that, people started screaming and taking pictures, and horns were honking because everybody wants it. The public is seeing how ridiculous this is.
Yeah.
And it didn't look like they arrested anybody. I was talking to one of the employees, Jazz, that works there, and I go, why? Do you know why they came in? And she goes, no, I don't know why.
Yeah.
And it happened in West WeHo, too. It happened in West Hollywood. 2 of our dispensaries were raided in March, and I've asked many people, including Duncan from Americans for Safe Access, who has a collective there, and he doesn't know either why they're doing that. Our own LAPD.
Yeah, for me too, when I think about, because we just had our first kind of sheriff's bust here of a club in the Portland area. So, our area is just starting to now go through this. But you guys have been having raids and going through this for years and years and years, over a decade now. And I think what may be happening, or at least I hope this is happening with the general public, is that at first, when these new marijuana stores move in, oh my God, we're scared. It's new marijuana stores. It's drug dealers. Oh my God, we're scared. But then after 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, and the places where these dispensaries are located, cleaning up the neighborhoods and the foot traffic, everybody seems to be fine. I think after a while, the public goes, gee, what's the big deal? It seems like people go in and get their medicine and it's not a problem. So what I'm hoping is when they see these raids now, that the general public is now going, why? Why are you doing this? It seemed to be working. Do you feel that?
I don't know. None of it's really making sense right now. What exactly is going on? I find that most people, when they realize that the dispensaries are in their city and there's no crime, it cuts down on the crime. Actually, it's getting back to the community. What's ironic is we just voted in Measure M here, which legalized our businesses to be, the dispensaries to be taxed. And that money goes right back into the city to support all the stuff that we're deficit on. And yet they have the gall to raise us at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is basically, what is that? Is that taxation without representation?
It's something like along those lines. It's, I think, for offenses much less egregious, our founding fathers revolted against the British Crown. So we might as well call it that. And that's the other thing, too. I mean, you hit upon something that is happening up here in Portland as well. On the one hand, we're going to tax you. We're going to take all, we'll be glad to take your tax money. But on the other hand, we're going to bust you for doing it. Right? Well, we got that here in Oregon. They're trying to raise the medical marijuana cardholders' fees. And yet we say, all right, well, if you're so enamored of making money off of pot smoking, why limit that to 40,000 medical patients? Why not extend that to 400,000 recreational users? No, couldn't do that.
Yeah. I don't really understand what is going on. And again, who's paying that to happen? I mean, we are. Where our tax dollars are going for them to come in and, do their little thing and intimidate people and handcuff them and treat them poorly, and then they don't arrest. They take a few things and then they're done.
Yeah. Yeah, and you say this is just in the recent ones here that you're speaking about. They're just LAPD, no DEA, FBI, IRS, any of the alphabet soups.
It seems like that it's mostly our LAPD right now, and that's what is even more disturbing in some ways for myself. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, there's one DEA agent. He has long hair," and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess he's apparently undercover."
Well,
it's just. Yeah.
I don't know if we got our other caller on the line yet. Do we have a guest for today, Terry?
We do have a guest for today. Her name is Kimberly Metcalf, and she is a MS patient in Sacramento, and she's an herbologist. And she just swears by the fact that it's a healing herb, and that her life is she's able to get around and sustain herself much longer. She's never taken any of the medications that a normal MS patient would take. That's kind of weird to say a normal MS patient, but the ones that the pharmaceutical,
traditional,
the traditional doctors prescribe, because she doesn't believe in them.
Sure.
And feels that her progress or she's at least been able to maintain longer than some of her other friends who are actually on prescribed drugs. She just says she'll have nothing to do with that, and she's also a vegetarian.
Well, all right. Well, Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Is she there yet?
I don't think we have her. That's the thing. I don't think we have her on the line. I've been trying to dial out here, and I don't think we're getting an answer from her 916 area code here. Let's try it again. We'll see if we can get her on the line.
Are you getting a machine?
I'm not hearing anything. Oh, here we go. Let's see if she answers on this try. We're doing it live here at Normal Show Live. Kimberly Metcalf's our guest.
So, it's so weird. I had her on my doing the first day. Hello? She couldn't call in.
Hello, Kimberly?
Yes.
Hi, this is Russ Belville with Normal Show Live. You're on the air right now, just to let you know, but welcome to our show here, Normal Show Live. Terry's here with us, too.
Hello, Kimberly.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We were having, of course, we're always having technical problems with everything still. We had it on Hollywood Hemphus Hour too. It's just kind of funny. But welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
We were talking earlier, and Terry was kind of setting up your background as a medical marijuana patient, and we just wanted to give you a chance to talk about what's happening in the news with, basically raids at some of these dispensaries where you could get your medicine, and what the state of California's medical marijuana law is now. I wanted to get some of your personal thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's kind of ridiculous, for one, especially with somebody with a chronic disease that is going there for medication. And they have to fear that, Mm-hmm. I mean, you go through channels to be certified and legal, and fortunately, I've been very, blessed in that area. I go to 6 different cannabis clubs in the area, and I've never experienced that. Mm-hmm. We had one a few years ago up here in Roseville, and an elderly woman in a walker was either pushed to the ground or something, and they didn't take it very, everybody protest, and I know they eventually shut that club down, but I told Terry the other day that there's 75 in Sacramento County, and 39 will remain open under a grandfather clause, and the other ones either have to go up to either move or be up to standards. So I was going to see in a week which ones were, actually still active and which ones were shut down. So they have one up here. It's almost like they call it the Costco. Mm-hmm. And they have, the prices are good. It's just the varieties are excellent. And they have a description of each, whether it's a clone or edible or whatever. Now, I heard Montel Williams was here this week, and he was actually promoting one of the clubs up here.
Right. He was going to set one up, I believe.
At the hotel. I think it was a 2 or 3 day a lecture on cannabis, medical cannabis for MS patients.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a multiple sclerosis patient, before you were able to get engaged with medical marijuana use, what was life like trying to use the traditional pharmaceuticals for you?
Well, I never went that route. I didn't use pharmaceuticals.
Before medical marijuana, what I meant to say is before medical marijuana, I mean, how much of a difference has this made in your life?
Oh, I see. It's a complete turnaround. I don't get muscle spasms. I produce more energy. Intestinal tract's in excellent shape. Mm-hmm. But see, I incorporate other herbs with it. And they're all legal. From eyebright, gotu-kola. I target the areas that there's variations of MS. Mm-hmm. And then some, like you lose your mobility, you lose your sight, loss of appetite. I try to cover all those areas. And it's all through either cannabis or traditional Indian herbs. Everything that I take is organic. I'm on an organic vegetarian diet, lots of water, aloe vera juice. So, it's just like the whole combination of everything. I'm not just sitting on a couch smoking cannabis all day. I eat it, I smoke it, I drink it, and I break it up throughout the whole day. Mm-hmm. But I'm up from 5 in the morning, because I live on a farm, till after actually the news is over, almost midnight. And I do this routine 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
I don't have a caregiver. We have racehorses on the farm. I mean, I sustain everything here. I got a husband that works multiple jobs, and I'm very active. And if I didn't have the cannabis, I couldn't do all this.
Right, and that's the thing that I wish so many people would understand, because I think there's some people out there that their attitude toward medical cannabis is, well, if you're dying, I suppose we can let you get high. Right, when they don't understand that, no, this changes lives. This leads to people being able to actually live a life worth living, to be able to contribute to their families, to their society, and you want to treat it like a joke. You want to treat it like it's some sort of dirty, disgusting thing, and it's not. It's a medicine, and it helps people, and I want to thank you so much for telling people that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, Terry, did you have...
It's not a dirty drug at all.
I completely agree.
It is a political herb.
But there we go.
The only thing toxic is the politics.
The only thing toxic is the politics about it. That's right. Terry, I wanted to give you a chance to ask questions too here on the show.
Well, Kimberly, just what I would like to know about you is, and I asked this on Hollywood Hempest Hour too. What do you do to prepare, and how are you medicating yourself? What are some of the things I'd love to hear some of the things that you make and you bake, and how your day proceeds when you the many uses that you do.
For instance, I make a mango tango smoothie. I make mulberry pancakes, all kinds of granola bars. I also incorporate flaxseed, oatmeal, all kinds of different nuts, from Brazil nuts, walnuts. You got your megas. I put cinnamon with it. You got your antioxidants. And then what I do is I make a cannabis butter. And I incorporate a cannabis butter in the foods, from casseroles. I mean, the sky is the limit what you can do with it. The stems, I put it into my tea. I extract, because there is THC in the stems, every part of the cannabis but the seed. And when I produce my organic cannabis, there are no seeds. But you could eat the seed, because there is fiber in it, but there's no THC. Other soups in the wintertime, put it in the crock pot, a nice vegetable broth. I use a lot of tofu because I'm a vegetarian. I put tofu in there with broccoli, asparagus, carrots. I got my beta carotenes in there. Just spaghetti.
Now, you guys are starting to make me hungry now. I have to cut this off. I haven't even eaten yet today, and here you are talking spaghetti and granola, and oh my goodness, it sounds wonderful. Kimberly Metcalf, I want to thank you for being on our show today and giving people a patient's perspective on what's going on. And I'm so glad that cannabis is in your life and you're in a state where you can use it.
Oh, we are so blessed to be in the state of California.
Yeah, and
everybody needs to stand behind their rights and let them know that this is not a gateway to other drugs. I've never ever tried anything else, and I'm never interested in that. This is strictly for medical purposes. And again, I am so grateful to have something like this in our country, being on our soil, being able to produce.
Yeah.
Exactly what I know. It's all organic. I'm not buying something off the street.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot safer.
I'm glad that's working out for you. And Terry Joyce, Hollywood Hempress Hour got a new edition that'll be on the network tonight, 8 o'clock Pacific time. And what else is happening in your life?
Well, I have a couple shows going on. I'm doing a show for the Laughter Foundation on the 25th, and I'll be posting stuff on Facebook, as well as a show at M-Bar on the 28th here in Los Angeles. And that's pretty much it for everything. Just check out Hollywood Hempress Hour on the New Dissident Radio Network, and find me on Twitter.
All right. Well, that sounds great. And Terry Joyce and Kimberly Metcalf, thanks for joining us here in the Southern California scene. We'll talk to you again sometime.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of radical ranting on Operation Fast and Furious. I was going to say Green Merchant. That was the other operation. But Operation Fast and Furious and Testimony on the Hill when we come back.
The world's greatest cannabis competition is coming back to the Bay Area. Over 100 strains of medical marijuana will go head-to-head to see who's the dankest in California. Indicas, sativas, hybrids, concentrates, edibles, plus THC, CBD, and CBN testing. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, June 25th and 26th at the Concourse Exhibition Center in San Francisco. It's gonna be awesome. Get your tickets at medcancup.com.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is an entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. At NORML, we've been prepping for this debate for 40 years.
Hey, is it 420 yet? This is Rick Cusick from High Times Magazine, and you're tuned into NORML's Audio Stash.
NORML Show Live is actually live every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at live.normal.org.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
I don't know if you managed to catch it. I was riveted to C-SPAN last night. They are playing the replays of Representative Darrell Iss's hearings in the House on the death of Border Patrol agent Terry in relation to an alcohol, tobacco, and firearms operation known as Operation Fast and Furious. And let me just preface this by saying, when I have to watch something with Darrell Issa in it, you know my attention is piqued, because otherwise I would change the channel the minute I see the man's face. And it opened up, and if that wasn't bad enough, it opened up with Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, another guy who's one of the most anti-pot senators out there who said some of the most reefer-mad things. Yeah, named Grassley. Named some of the most reefer-mad things. You can check out my blog at stash.normal.org for all the history on those two. Anyway, what this has to do with is an alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, ATF, operation known as Operation Fast and Furious. And you know, when we're going to start naming our operations after shitty Vin Diesel movies, it's not going to turn out well. This is what they did. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, you know, the people that are in charge of making sure that guns stay out of the hands of killers, right? It's kind of one of their gigs. You know, it's the F there in the ATF. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms were working in Arizona along with gun store owners to encourage these gun store owners to sell weapons to these, what they call straw purchasers. Now, what a straw purchaser is, right? When you go buy a gun, you gotta, you know, be a legit person who can get a gun, right? You can't be a convicted felon. There's all sorts of, you know, rules and forms and things you have to sign. And you also have to check off a little box that says, yes, I'm buying this gun for me. This is my gun, right? So ATF encouraged these gun store owners to allow these straw purchasers, which are guys that come in who are legit, but they don't intend on buying that gun for themselves. No, they're hired by a cartel, they're hired by a gang, they're hired by a criminal to go buy a gun, and then they take the gun to the criminal who then, you know, now has a gun, right? So ATF was allowing these straw buyers, they were encouraging these gun store owners to allow these straw purchasers to come in, these straw gun purchasers to come in and buy buttloads of weapons over and over again. And we're talking like Romanian AK-47s, 50 caliber rifles, you know, things like that, right? Coming in repeatedly to buy these weapons. And then 3 agents testified on this panel, testified that they were then allowed to surveil the transaction where the straw purchaser then goes and delivers the guns to the next guy, you know, the criminal who's going to take it, right? And then we're told to stand down from that point after. At that point, they were told to surveil not the criminal who just got the guns, as they would do in a standard ATF firearms sting operation. No. They were told to go back and surveil the straw purchaser, the guy who had just bought the gun, knowing that the illegal weapons they just let go off into that car trunk with that criminal were headed on their way to Mexico into the hands of these violent criminals who have killed 34,550 Mexicans in the past 4 years, knowing damn well those guns were going to go kill someone. And it turned out they did. The guns didn't just make their way to Mexico. They also made their way to the United States. In fact, one of the agents testified if he could estimate a ratio of where the guns went, he said 2-to-1 Mexico to U.S. He said for every 2 guns that made it to Mexico, probably 1 gun made it to the U.S. illegally. And they testified furthermore that when these straw purchasers purchase the weapon, right, and they lie on that checkbox, they call that a buy and lie. That's the kind of case they make, a buy and lie. And that when they check that and they lie and they actually give it to someone else, that the punishment for doing so is usually probation. The max it could be is 10 years. But usually these people, if they have no criminal background whatsoever, if a Mexican cartel hires Russ Belville, me, a guy with no major criminal record, I did get a disturbing the peace, but no major criminal record, I'd be legal to go buy a gun. If I go buy a gun, lie about it, and then take it and sell it to criminals in Mexico to kill, the worst I could get is probation. In Arizona, right? The worst I get in probation, where a speck of marijuana can get you a felony charge. But buying a gun illegally and lying about it and giving it to a criminal, hell, we wouldn't want to piss off the NRA now, would we? So this goes to show you, I encourage you to Google this, Operation Fast and Furious, and do more research on it, because the deeper and more entangled you get in this, these 3 ATF agents not only talked about how it was completely against protocol and procedure, they were asked by one of the representatives, they said, in your previous experience, because one of these guys had worked in the Bronx, right, and had done ATF work and firearms work in the Bronx in New York, right? So had some cred. And the representative asked him, in your experience, if you had been doing a gun sting like this and had and you knew guns were walking, that was the term they kept using, was the guns would walk, meaning you wouldn't follow the gun, right? The gun got away. How many guns would have to walk in a case before it would trip your radar, before a flag would go up and you'd freak out? And this ATF officer testified, we wouldn't leave work if a disabled gun, one disabled gun, was allowed to walk. He talked about doing stings where they'd have these firearms and they would mechanically, take the firing pin out or whatever, mechanically fix them so that they wouldn't work. They wouldn't leave work until they tracked that gun down. And then the representative followed up and said, so how many guns did we lose in this Fast and Furious that just ended up walking? And the officer responded in testimony, thousands of guns allowed to flow down to Mexico, 2-1, 2 to Mexico, 1 to the United States, illegal. Now, this operation was coming from the head of ATF in that area and the U.S. attorney in that area, and I forget the woman's name that was mentioned here. But as they go up the chain of command, they find, no, Department of Justice never authorized this. Obama never authorized this. This all came from rogue Rambo John Wayne cops in the ATF who had this grand idea, and this was their plan. This is at least as far as they could try to imagine what was in the minds of these supervisors. But the idea was that they would allow the guns to go, and then they could follow the guns up this chain to the cartels and then take the cartels down on a buy and lie that you get probation for. On a conspiracy you can't prove because you weren't surveilling anybody, and charging people with crimes in the United States for which they would have to be extradited from Mexico. Right. So that explanation doesn't wash for me at all. When I look at these things, I can't help but think that maybe this is by design. Maybe a whole bunch of guns need to make it to Mexico to make it more violent. And by making it more violent, we have to sell more U.S. aid, more helicopters, more surveillance equipment, more ammunition to our Mexican neighbors. And maybe by allowing it to get more violent, we scare the hell out of Americans into keeping drugs illegal a little bit longer. I'm generally not a conspiracy theory guy, and I'm not suggesting that is at all what's going on, but when you look at the results of it, if that were the plan, it's working. I mean, this is what's going on. And this is how reefer mad our law enforcement have become when it comes to drugs. Because we're talking about Mexican drug war, drugs, drug cartels, drugs, all logic, protocol, all past ways of doing business go out the window. They allowed guns. And the gun store owners, by the way, in this testimony, if this is on C-SPAN, go watch it. I know C-SPAN's boring stuff, but it's Elijah Cummings is there. The ranking member had a lot of stuff. And this was very telling, too. Kaliko, maybe you can help me with this. Didn't Elijah Cummings suffer from some sort of gun homicide in his family or shooting or something?
I think I vaguely remember.
Yeah, there's some story about Cummings being... Well, wasn't Cummings part of, MLK's posse? And
oh, no, that was John Lewis.
Lewis, thank you. Okay, wrong guy. Anyway, but he'd had some gun, was a victim of gun crime in his gun death in his family as well. So it was very compelling testimony. Now, some of the stuff that was disturbing about it was during the testimony, one of the ATF agents started to say, maybe if we had a mandatory minimum of 1 year for doing these buy-and-lies, we could, cut down on this. And ISA, the little NRA chip that the GOP implants in the base of their reptilian lizard brain, just started going off because ISA's like, oh, order, we'll come to order. The testimony here, this is about the killing of by the way, the reason this all come up, by the way, this whole thing, Operation Fast and Furious has come up because one of the guns that got away, of the thousands that got away, ended up killing the Border Patrol agent. They were able to trace it and find out, oh, this is one of the guns we let get away. It killed a Border Patrol agent. So God knows if these guns had only killed Mexicans and poor folks in America, whether or not with this hearing would even be happening. Okay. But anyway, the little chip goes off in ICE's brain here about, oh my God, we can't piss off the NRA, and starts saying, no, this is not a place to discuss regulations. It's not the scope of this hearing. The scope of this hearing is to discuss the ATF Operation Fast and Furious, blah, 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 blah. And he had to be admonished. It was, the gentlewoman from New York was asking the question. I forget what her name was, but she had to be further admonished by Representative Elijah Cummings and a couple of other representatives to say, no, you can control what the committee does as far as the scope of the hearings. But when you're talking about people that are testifying in front of their government, they got the free speech right to say what's on their mind. There is no scope that you can limit them to. And gee, what a novel idea, a mandatory minimum sentence for a crime that actually kills people. I'd actually think about getting behind that. Please look it up. Operation Fast and Furious. And they're trying to turn this into an Obama thing. You know, Fox News is like, oh, this is a scandal of Obama. This is not an Obama scandal. This would be the same exact story in the Bush administration. This is a drug war scandal. When it comes to the drug war, D or R behind your name doesn't matter. It's the way that our entire system is built to deal with this situation. It's endemic and systemic. Doesn't matter if it's Obama, doesn't matter if it's Bush. It won't matter when the next president comes in unless it's, you know, maybe somebody. But hey, we gotta go. For Kalika the intern and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us for our first hour. Get the podcast on iTunes and stash.normal.org. For those of you staying live, stay tuned for Toker Talk Radio. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
We love the earth.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.